Y nos vamos para Centroamérica. Welcome back to Central American Voices podcast. Today we have a very exciting conversation. We're going to talk about law. We're going to talk about community and representation. And I'm here with Roger and Stephanie from Proceso. Welcome. Thank you for having us. Now, it's a pleasure to have you here. So before we go into our question, I just want to ask if you can introduce just a little bit of yourself.
My Mexican friends who always had a hard time pronouncing my first name, Rogelio. It's not my real name, but that's okay. I'll answer to that. There's a whole story about why it is that Central Americans come with English names, but it's true. We do. Wilmer, William, Ezekiel, you name it. We got it. Roger Ponce, I'm an attorney. I've been doing this now for 2010, so it's 15 years, going on 16 years. My background is in criminal and immigration representation. And lately we've been doing a lot of federal litigation against basically what the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, and what this Trump administration has been doing. So,
hi everyone, I'm Stephanie. I am Central American, first generation Latina. I'm here with Roger, who I also work for under Proceso and for criminal. I am a law student myself, and I'm happy to be another voice for Central Americans. Yeah.
hey.
Well, thank you so much for that. And, it's a pleasure to have you. So I have a couple questions. I'm going to go like one at one. So for you, do you prefer Roger or Roger?
Well, it depends who's talking to me. If it's my mom and I hear Roger Humberto Ponce, I know Florian, then I know what's coming. No, la verdad me da igual. It's all the same to me. Roger, Roger, and like I said, I know that as I was growing up here in LA County and sort of immersing myself even in the Mexican culture, most of my friends' mothers could never say it Roger, or so they would just say Rogelio, and that's okay. It's not my name, but I'll answer to it.
Okay. Well, Roger. So you shared that you came from Honduras at a very young age, and you grew up in San Fernando Valley with a single mom. Can you tell us a little bit about how your upbringing and how your early experience shaped your path into law?
We got here, I want to say 1985, somewhere between the 1985. I just remember it was kind of rainy and cold right after my birthday, and I remember Halloween. So that's why I say it's between the time I was about 6 years old and I turned 6 here in the United States. And cruzamos por la vía de Tijuana, San Isidro. That's why that sign, that yellow sign with the parents, with the kids behind crossing that road, after 805, to me that sign is special. I don't have any tattoos, but if I was to ever get a tattoo, that's probably the one that I would get, because that sign represented exactly our history coming into this country. And we crossed over. I remember as a kid, being hauled across the San Isidro Mountains. It was cold. I was tired, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever I was. And I remember one of the guys that I was crossing with, and I don't even know if he was a coyote or just another person crossing with us, but he helped my grandma who crossed with us carry me essentially across the touchdown line. And so, but I remember jumping the fence. I remember darting across the freeway. Didn't know what that was, but they said run, and I said okay. And we ran across, and and then we landed somehow in the San Fernando Valley, where we made our home in the city, between the city of San Fernando, Silmar. Earthquake took us eventually to Pacoima, and then back to Silmar. I went to San Fernando High School, Pacoima Middle School. I am from this. I love the San Fernando Valley, the real valley. I don't care what anybody in the country says. And then I was undocumented all through my childhood, all the way until I was 18 years of age. And I still remember a conversation with my mom. I was very active in high school. So I did sports. I did yearbook. I did all those AP classes. I was an undercover nerd because I was too cool to be a nerd, but I did it all. And I remember we were organizing for leadership a trip to Mazatlan, right? And the kids were beginning to get all excited, collect money. I told my mom, and my mom was like, my mom's got a great sense of humor. She's like, you can go, you just can't come back, right? And I remember that because up until that point, I was just living life, right? I was just growing up, learning the language, it didn't take very long. Learning the schooling system, and sort of you're just being a kid, right? Like every other kid. I moonwalked with Michael Jackson and did all that stuff that just any regular American kid. And so this is why I understand the kids that are brought here so young, like the dreamers, because we don't have a choice. And then we become immersed and we become a fabric of what this country is. And for those of us who are in la lucha trying to become better and better our families and better ourselves, it's really disheartening when you realize, wait a minute, I'm from here, but not really. What you mean by that, right? And so, I always tell dreamers, all the DACA individuals that I talk to, we were dreamers before there was an idea of what dreamers were. When I got into college, and I only went to college really because I had great mentors along the way. I didn't really think it was even a thing. I did all these things, but I did all these things because I was bored at home, right? We didn't have Facebook, Roblox, social media. No, it's true. No, I hate to say it, but I went to school because what am I going to do at home? We didn't even have cable, right? And so it's school to me was an outlet. And then once I found sports, I fell in love with basketball. The mentors and the coaches and the individuals in the community, I fell in love with community organizing. Those individuals saved my life. They really did. And they allowed me to imagine a world that was not my own. And I wanted that. And so I remember, trying to figure out how am I going to get to that stage where I can see the world, learn about the world, and figure my place in this thing. And I tried to become a Marine. But back in the days, they weren't accepting kids with no papers. But it was the best thing that could happen to me. I got nothing against the armed services. I personally, where I'm at in my life today, I would never encourage my kids to do the armed services. I have nothing in respect for veterans and whatnot, but I think that, where we're at in the world today, and the people that end up sort of bearing the heaviest of that burden, I don't know if I would have done that. And God has a way of sometimes taking you in places. I got into UCLA. I got into a bunch of other schools. I actually got into Syracuse, and I wanted to be what you're doing. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to get into that kind of stuff. I got a full ride to Syracuse University, and I was still going through my paperwork through my mom's legalization. So I had a work permit. I had a good social security number. And I remember the admissions or the financial aid people calling me from Syracuse saying, hey, we have to take that back because you're not a resident. And I said, well, what do you mean? Back in the days, most schools did not have like what we do have here now with the AB, what is it, 540?
540, yeah.
They just didn't have ways for kids that were undocumented, like in my situation, to give them money. It was against essentially the rules and the laws. And I did an internship in Washington, D.C. I met with my congressman. I met with the head of the dean at UCLA at the time. And as heartfelt as he felt for me, there's just nothing he could have done about it. And Syracuse couldn't give me money. I got into Berkeley. Same thing with Berkeley. Berkeley couldn't give me any money. And the only reason I ended up going to UCLA is because UCLA is on a quarter system, and their system starts all the way in October, whereas everyone else starts in August. So those 2 months is what made a difference, because in those 2 months is when I became a legal resident. That's how I ended up at UCLA. I got love for UCLA now, but it wasn't like, yeah, I go UCLA. It was like, oh, snaps, I got no other choice. I remember the admissions people at Berkeley telling me, well, why don't you defer your admissions? And I was pissed. I was like, well, do you tell all these other kids that, or just me, right? But you don't realize that, of course, as a frustrated 18, 17-year-old kid, you don't realize the different politics that are being pulled. And in California, if you remember, during that time in 1998, we still had Pete Wilson as our governor. And it was really the last time that California had a real Republican. I mean real, not this MAGA nonsense. And I'll talk about MAGA in just a minute, but a real Republican. And I think, unfortunately for Pete Wilson and the people who were in his ears, they really took an ugly anti-immigration stance with Proposition 187, Proposition 209. I don't know if you guys remember that, but this is when they were asking teachers. I was a high schooler. They were asking teachers essentially to be spies for Department of Homeland Security, INS at the time, and to essentially report kids who they suspected were undocumented. They were trying to deny emergency services to people who were undocumented. And that's what started a significant movement. And quite frankly, that's what started the end of the Republican Party in the state of California. Because after that, look what we have now. Like anybody who says they're Republican in the state of California is almost laughed at, right? We all know that kind of flavor. But I think what ended up happening from that is Republicans didn't learn their lesson, right? Before Trump and before this whole MAGA movement, I think there was a real effort for Republicans to try to grow their tent and to understand the benefits that immigrants like myself, I'm not alone. I'm not the exception in that regard, right? I pay my taxes. I went to law school. I employ people. I have offices that we're trying to grow, businesses that we are a part of the fabric of what makes America great. It's not make America great again. It's we make America greater. And I think the Republicans really didn't understand the impact that it had until ultimately, like my mom used to say, the hard-headed have to feel it to believe it. And in California, they are cero a la izquierda. Nobody listens to them. And I think what's going to happen in the rest of the country, despite what they try to do, and I mean, you can only move to so many places, right? There are so many Arkansas, Oklahomas, and Mississippi's of the world before you realize that the rest of the world is changing. Yeah. The fabric of this country is changing. And even though it scares so many Americans, we're not here to displace anyone. We're here to make this exactly what this country was, the founding fathers intended it to be, right? A country for all who want to really progress and want to really make it that much better, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what has always been my impetus. I just didn't know how to formulate as a kid. As a kid, I was just like, damn, why does LAPD always pick on me? I'm not doing anything, right? Or why do all these people hate on me? Like, I'm just trying to go to school, I swear, right? And, but thankfully I got into UCLA, and the paperwork that needed to come through, INS came through at the time. And I did my 4 years at UCLA. I studied abroad, and I was in Brazil before the September 11 attacks. And I remember, because these are like pivotal moments in your life where you're like, big things happen. I came back from Brazil in 2001, I want to say July or August. And then we had the September 11 attacks. And I remember for the first time feeling like scared with this whole immigration thing, because the attack that the Muslim community was beginning to feel thereafter, right, really changed the way, I'm beginning to learn about these racial dynamics. I'm beginning to learn about immigration. I'm beginning to learn about the history of the United States and all these different countries and places, the push and pull factors to immigration. So you're beginning to understand that the world is far more complicated than black and white. And then September 11 attacks happen, right? And the irony about what's happening today is it's gone through different flavors. September 11 was Muslims. And then now what you're beginning to feel with this MAGA movement is all of a sudden, and I'll tell you this quick story. I remember coming from class September 11th when the attacks happened. And there was a car full of young men, white kids who were driving through UCLA Westwoods. And I remember they stopped right in front of me as I'm walking back to my apartment. And they looked at me. And I felt the need to have to say, I'm not Muslim, I'm Latino, right? Oh. But just to have to feel the need to have to even explain yourself brings me forward 30 years later. And now having to tell whoever's observing you, I got papers, I swear I'm a citizen. To me, this is not the America that I want my kids to grow up in, which is why I wake up every day to make sure that, the fight, I continues. This country has never been one that just gives. It's always been one that you have to fight in order to have this country truly live out what its founding fathers intended it and wrote on paper. And that's why I became a lawyer.
Wow. It's a long story, but I always feel like, I think for what we always pursue in our careers is always comes from a personal experience. And like you also saying from 1998, I was like a year old. You're like September 11. I was a kid going to kindergarten, but like you said, something that I was thinking when you were talking about it, people here on the podcast know that I am undocumented. And like when I had to go to school, something I thought I couldn't go. I was like, hasta high school, aquí queda, and you told me that it's like, wow, what I thought it was hard. And then I reflect on your story. I'm like, damn, you had it harder because that was the time, honestamente, like you have to walk through all the stuff so I could go to college, so like people like you had to open the door for people like me to go to college, to get like a school like here in California, which I'm always super grateful of the DREAM Act.
It was community organization. Mm-hmm. And this is why I tell you, politics and history matter, right?
Yes.
What happened after Prop 187 was community organizers understood what the other side was trying to do. And even though, so quirky story, right? I had a social security number. And I remember I got into UCLA. They had what they called the freshman transfer program. So they did summer classes before the rest of the students started. And the reason they do that is because they want you to kind of get acclimated with what college life is like. And I'm so thankful for that, right? And they gave me a full scholarship for that until they realized they couldn't. But I was dead set. Once Berkeley took the position they took, and Syracuse took the position they took, I was like, no, I'm not going to just give up. I've got to figure it out. So I remember getting into this program, and I remember walking through UCLA. And if you ever walk through any college campus, it's crazy, right? Besides all those stupid people that are like, come rush our fraternity and our sororities, you also have people trying to sell you all kinds of garbage. And I remember Discover Card, right? I'm walking through and they're like, come get your credit card. I didn't have a credit card, but I had a social security number. So I said, you're going to allow me to get a credit card? Okay. So I applied not for one, but 2 credit cards.
Did you get a free tote bag?
I absolutely did. I remember getting a tote. Listen, but this is why it matters. And this is why, to me, this is why I tell my sister and I tell my kids, I got these 2 stupid credit cards and I ran them up. I didn't buy Jordans or anything stupid. I paid for my school with those stupid credit cards. I got into $12,000 of debt before I even started school with credit cards. So they wouldn't give me loans. They wouldn't give me financial aid, but they'd give me a freaking credit card. So you know what I did when I finally did get my papers and got my FAFSA money? You think I paid off those credit cards? I didn't. So I struggle for the next year trying to pay them off. But the point being is this is the dystopia that is this country, right? It's like, we'll allow you to get indebted for all kinds of stupid things, but God forbid you want to do something good with it. And that was the reality back in 1998. And you're right, it took community organizers and it took people on the ground and in Sacramento and in Washington D.C. that understood what they were trying to do. So I hear you though.
Yeah, no, but it's true, because I have that conversation too, and I'll be with you, Stephanie, of that I always say that it's so funny, because as an undocumented, you get an ITIN number, you know what I mean? So you can open a bank account, you can open credit cards, I can open a company, right, with an ITIN number, and you can hire the company, but you cannot hire me because I have an ITIN number. It's still but I have to pay taxes. But I cannot work. And it's always like this conversation. I'm always like, this country just wants to benefit, but they don't want us to benefit. When we try to do good, when we try to do to school, when we try to, help our community areas, all this stuff. Like all of a sudden, there's always a blockage to do things. So, I appreciate you going to law for all those, and all those obstacles that you had. And I know that now, like that you told us a little bit about proceso, I know where it comes from, because even that image of like crossing, you understand that, like people that you serve, people that you listen to them every single day, people that you represent in court. It's like, no, I've been there. I know how it feels like, and this has been the same thing for many years. Like that was
it says 1986 for
1986. I'm like
85, 80, I can't remember. I know. But I'm going to tell you something. As somebody who is, going through it yourself, you have to appreciate and understand the history, because if you let the narrative that is going on today, occupy and exhaust the entire oxygen in the room, you're really going to believe that nonsense. And it wasn't always like that. Like it was Ronald Reagan who signed off. It was, a bipartisan decision back in 1986 to give ultimately people like my mom, right, the amnesty that opened the way for people like me. And so now this is why it's so hurtful to see all these, especially Latinos. But I get it. Latinos, we're not a penumbra. We're very complicated. We don't all come with the same spirit, same mentality, same struggle. So sometimes when they throw us and clump us all together, I think there's a real disservice that's done to our community. So I understand why certain communities within our community, right, vote a certain way. But to see so many Mexican Americans, so many Central American, right, Latinos be so pro-Trump, pro-MAGA, it's really like myopic and kind of like cucarachas voting for raid. Do you not understand what the bigger message is? The bigger message is, bro, you are not a part of this tent. And we will use you and abuse you to get what we need to get done. But don't get it twisted, right? You're only kind of there. And you'll always be just kind of there. And they forget the struggle of their parents, right? They forget the struggles of their grandparents. Y se les vuelve bien fácil decir, well, hey, if I did it, why can't they do it, right? Bro, you didn't do anything, right? That would be like me now taking the position that, you know what happened to my family? Ronald Reagan signed off on bipartisan agreement to allow amnesty for my mom, and that created a pathway for me. To now then turn back and say, pero le vamos a cerrar las puertas a todos los que vinieron después de mí porque qué taco te estás comiendo de hipocresía, ¿verdad? And that's the unfortunate part, because I think there's a real community that's hurting. There's a lot of politics that's talking in our communities, but there are real people that are being hurt by all of this. And that's what they don't see, right? This idea of, you know, MAGA comes in with this idea of vamos a sacar a todos los malos. Everyone agrees that if you behave in this country and you're not actually giving back and you're one of those people, we don't even want you in our community, right? But that's not what's happening. And I can tell you on the forefront, what is actually happening is ICE, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice is using every which way they can to make it damn nearly impossible for people to quote unquote do it the right way. And that's just the bottom line. So the question then becomes, why? Why? It's no longer about wanting to kick the bad immigrants out. It's about wanting to make sure you send a message. And the message is, you are person non grata. Except it's too late, brother. It's too late, because we're here. And those of us that are here are going to make sure that our kids remember. And when I talk to clients and I get them out and they become legal residents and I'm pushed to citizen, I tell them, just remember what it took for you to do this, right? And I like to share stories because it's the only way I think. This is why I love the Bible for this reason, because I understand why Jesus talks in parables. But if you ever watch the movie Scarface, right? Tony Montana, right? And he goes, there's a scene in that movie where he's asked to kill somebody. He's asked to kill one of the other people. And they're talking about the killing. And he goes, man, I kill a communist for fun. But for a green card, I cut them up real good. And the reason that line sticks in my mind is because people don't understand what a person would do to get adjusted in this country.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so it just, that's what, you know, this is why I fight so hard about immigrant rights and people and even criminal court that you may think has nothing to do with immigrant rights. No, because if you plead guilty in criminal court to something, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you need to understand it's going to have ramifications far greater than just the 90 days or the whatever community service or the fine that you're about to get hit with. You can lose your green card, and people don't realize until it's too late sometimes.
Yeah. And you're right. Let me go here to Stephanie. So I wanted to ask you a little bit of how was for you, like your upbringings and your decision to pursue law.
So I'm Roger's sister. I don't know if that was established, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
we look so alike.
So
And I was actually born over here, so my family dynamic in a way is kind of different to Roger's. Roger's 15 years older than me, so it was mainly my single mom and Roger raising me. Funny enough, when I became a toddler is when he actually went away to college, so he was there for some part of it and then came back. I was raised in a single mom home. I was raised in San Fernando till it got too dangerous, right? We eventually moved to Reseda. Basically moved around everywhere, downtown LA, ended up back in Reseda, mainly due to income issues and all kinds of stuff. But I ended up at Chico State, which was, I think, the biggest culture shock. You know, once you grow up in the Valley, you grow up in downtown LA, you're now in a predominantly white area. And funny enough, I don't think I realized this till my first day of class, because I went to the orientation for Latinos so my mom could understand. So in my head, I'm like, okay, there's a good amount of us. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting in my first, general ed. It's like history or something. And I'm looking around and everyone's blonde, blue eyes, white. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? My first week, I'm looking for a torta. I go to a Mexican place. I asked for a torta. They didn't sell tortas. There was no pan dulce. Closest Pollo Loco was like an hour and a half away in Sacramento. And I think that's what it really hit me. I ended up finding a lot more of myself in my major, which was Spanish, sitting in Spanish classes. And one of the big things too is that I end up starting my junior year at Chico when Trump gets presidency. So it became what felt like a Latino hunt. I had like random white students messaging me like, oh, go back to your country. And I'm here thinking like, I'm white passing. I can't imagine when my mom comes to visit me. And we definitely felt that when my family would come visit me, the looks and stuff, you know, we were like exotic to them, right? But
Not in a good way.
not in a good way.
And I'm like, you said like you're white passing too. Like I'm like,
Yeah. You know, it was definitely a culture shock. I ended up having a roommate who had very racist family too. So that was scary. And eventually I'm like, let me just finish my 2 years here, graduate and move back. And I started as a Spanish teacher, worked as a court translator, and I was like, you know what, this is not for me. I don't feel like I'm making enough of an impact, right? I don't want to be the person just telling you what's happening. I want to be the person that's helping. And, you know, Roger was always pushing me towards law school, but very much like, you know, when you're, yeah, very much like an older brother. I'm like, I don't want to be like you, bro.
You're gonna be better.
I don't want to be stressed like you. And you know, you don't see the representation growing up. So you're like, can I be a lawyer? Like, you know, you see these legally blonde as a lawyer, but you don't see a Latina as a lawyer. You don't grow up seeing that. And eventually, you know, I bent my arm and I was like, oh man, I think I was made for this. And it became, you know, common sense to join Roger and his firm. And when he told me about Proceso, I felt like it was a calling home, you know, to help my own people and hear the stories and just empathize. And, you know, a lot of it I didn't go through, like crossing the border or any of this, but I heard the stories, right? I felt the impact. I grew up translating documents. I know what it's like to, you know, see my mom on the other end frustrated because she has this document that she doesn't understand. And now she's relying on a second grader to translate it for her. And a lot of it in Proceso, we still see that, right? We still see a lot of clients that are like, I got this document. Does this mean, like, is he going to be released or is he going to be deported, you know? And having to rely on someone to guide you while not trying to take advantage of you, I think is one of the biggest things that pushed me for Proceso.
yeah, I love that. I honestly, I'm still like, I didn't know you could.
Yeah, so,
Joking.
It's because you said my sister, like
Like,
in
is she in
another
the room?
room.
the call is kind of like from inside. Yes.
Just throw that surprise bomb.
¿Sabes qué? Pero ese es un ejemplo de la dinámica de nuestra cultura, ¿verdad? Porque si tú cierras los ojos y tú piensas American citizen, right? There is an idea, right? This is what I hate to put out names like that, but you know, I was listening to Erica, what's her name? The Erica Kirk, right? And she was talking about how we need to protect our white men. But that's no, espérate, that's really telling about the way the MAGA movement and where Americans, right, America is really feeling, because when they're closing their eyes now and they're thinking American and they're seeing my babies, your babies, right, dark-skinned babies, right, it's scary to them because they really feel like they're losing. And I heard a comedian once say, well, dang, if they're losing, who the hell is winning, right? Because what they don't understand is that we're all in this together. Yeah. And unfortunately, listen, I'm a capitalist through and through. Okay, this idea of socialism, I think there are great ideas within it, but I am not a communist. So I don't buy into the fairy tale sometimes that the extreme leftist wants to throw out there. So I apologize to anybody who's listening to me as an ultra liberal. I'm not one of them. But I think there's a problem with the conservatives as MAGA has sort of adopted this mentality that somehow, some way, we're not contributing to this, right? As if somehow, some way, the pie is so small that we all have to fight for the crumbs. Bro, this country is built on corporations, right? And as a lawyer, what I have now learned is the power of the corporate interests in this country is what's creating the division that currently exists. No one wins but them when we start saying it's illegals, it's them, or it's the white dudes, it's them, or it's the this, it's them, it's the black man, it's them. They're the only ones that win. I got in trouble one time at UCLA because I remember this Chicano brother come up to me. And, he had long hair. Back then I was really like, faded up and whatnot. But this cat comes up to me. Espérame, se me acerca. Está un poquito gordito. He's got long hair, right? And he's all, I fell back because I got a beard now going on. But he's all like that. And he says, me invita a una cita de mecha. I got no beef with mecha. Much love to people who want to follow that sort of growth. But I'm like, no, I'm good. He goes, well, he kind of looked at me like, aren't you proud to be raza? And I'm like, bro, you have no idea what it is to be raza. And he goes, what you mean, right? And I'm like, listen, man. I said, I don't live in a world where, ay, no sé si soy ni de aquí ni de allá como la India María. I live in a world where I just got my papers. And si a mí me deportan, I know very well where I'm ending up. So I don't live in that fantasy. I live in a world where we struggle to just make ends meet. My first priority is, can I feed myself? Do I have a warm place to stay at? A safe and, clean environment? And then I worry about all that other like social, racial stuff. My kids, very different, right? And this is probably where Stephanie's struggle is different from mine, right? That second and third generation, their fight may be a little bit different. So I used to tell these Mecha brothers and sisters, I'm like, listen, rather than living in a world of fantasizing about Aslan, and again, I'm not hating on anybody, but Native Americans, they still exist. Right? They're still in Chiapas. They're still in Guerrero. They're still in all these Oaxaca. They're still struggling for an existence and recognition. So let's not live in the world where we have to fantasize about a history that doesn't exist. We're living in a reality that does exist. And in that reality, the struggle is far more and greater than just how do we sing Kumbaya, my Lord, drink beers together and commiserate about how bad the world is. No, how do we live in a world where we can make a difference? Right? I can't be a revoluco, Che Guevara. I don't want to be that, but I can change the world around those that I can touch. Yep. That is my sister, that is my kids, that is my mom, that is my own well-being. And that's the kind of revolutionary change we have to each make, each be responsible for those we can actually affect. That for me, that's my clients, right? That's the people that walk through that door. They may not think they're about to hear a preacher, right? They may not think they're about to hear a professor, but they're going to get one, whether they like it or not. And those are the kinds of changes we make. And we teach them through our own testimony and through the things that we're doing. I don't talk about business because I fantasize about it. I talk about business because I'm doing it. And I understand the value. And if in this country you are undocumented or you don't have a voice or a place, the world is no longer what it was in 1975, where you have to go to college, become a lawyer. I see taqueros make more money than college grads.
That's true.
Right? The question then for us becomes, how do we turn that into something bigger? Right? So anyway, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's right. You're right. And I think that everything, I think about changing small little pockets of changes that we all have to make our own effort to make those changes. I always said, like, we're not Jesus Christ to save everybody. You know what I mean? Like, we can be. What we can do is help, like, ourselves and then help other people if our capacity. I think I really wanted to talk because you talked a little bit about proceso, and now that I know that you're both our brothers and sister, it's I'm still like, I should have known that play. No, Shaq is like thinking like amazing duo, honestly. What happened? True.
That's bad.
True. So to Roger, what inspired you to create Proceso? And kind of like, why do you see, like, when you see the gap and why do you want it to solve? But at the same time, to Stephanie, when Roger introduced Proceso to you, it took some time for you to be like, yeah.
The seed of Proceso started actually about 5 years ago for me, because I actually created the LLC about 5 years ago, but I did nothing with it. And I'm going to tell you where it really started from. During the first Trump administration, I felt burnt out. I felt like I couldn't help people. I felt that this administration, the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, estaban encontrando formas de encerrar el camino, making it impossible for people to do anything. And that burned me out. And it burned me out because people were getting apprehended just like they are now. We weren't able to fight for them. Prosecutors in immigration court didn't have discretion. And so people were getting mad at us, the lawyers. And I got so sick and tired of immigration law that I said, I don't want to do it anymore. But there's a need for it. The reality is that immigration is going to be a reality in this country, whether people like it or not. This country needs immigrants as much as immigrants need this country, right? And so Proceso was the child. My mom and I, when my mom started going through the amnesty process, ella encontró una notaria, like so many in the community, right? And I remember going with her to these offices of people who prepared taxes, maybe sold you insurance. Oh, and by the way, I can make you a green card holder. And these people had no idea what they were doing half the time, but I stunned, right? And, I remember my mom going from hands to hands to hands to hands till we finally found somebody who's what's called the Board of Immigration on the Board of Immigration Appeals approval list to help us push the paperwork through. But it took forever and a day. My mom couldn't afford a lawyer, right? And so that reality has always been sort of in the back of my mind. And I had gotten so burned out that I didn't want, but what do you do with all this information and all this experience that's in your head? You can't just walk away from it, right? So I felt like a soldier who's getting ready to retire, but what do I do with that information? And so I had this notion that, and it's kind of is inspired by LegalZoom. And so this is my idea. Don't you dare steal it. I already coined it, but no.
You're like, it's already trademarked, copyrighted, protected.
If you look at LegalZoom, right? What did LegalZoom do? So LegalZoom essentially took business lawyers out of business, because what they did was they democratized the process of incorporating. If you have a business idea, you and I, we want to sell widgets, whatever that widget is. How do we become a corporation? Well, back in the days, right? Back in my days when I walked 5 miles, you'd have to go to a business lawyer, and that business lawyer would charge you 5, 7, 10 grand to incorporate, right? And then congratulations, we now have a corporation. And I thought to myself, what is LegalZoom missing? Well, they don't talk immigration, which is what affects so many of our community. They also don't talk to you in your language. I said, so if I can put together a system or processes by which we can democratize, right, through really effective and intelligent videos and education platform that teaches our community what that process is. And I'm seeing it. On my TikTok, people already are filing their own habeases. They're filing their own paperwork. And so our community is one, immigrants are by nature DIY.
Yeah.
We have no choice, right? I didn't grow up with my dad, but when I met my dad, he's a carpenter, he's a mechanic, he's an engineer. He does everything. And you do it because you can't afford to pay someone else to do it. The problem is with immigration law is extremely unforgiving. If you mess up, that can be the end. And you don't want to get there. So the Proceso is intended to be an educational platform for people who want to learn about their own immigration process. 1, you learn. 2, you decide how much lawyer you're going to need. Because with understanding your process, they can't fool you. And that's the big part in our community. You can't be defrauded. But it takes us pushing our community to also not be lazy. Right? You have to take ownership. This is your life. Your attorney should not care more about your process than you do. So it really is incumbent upon you to learn it. Once you are an educated consumer, you can't be defrauded. And then you determine how much lawyer you need. Not everyone needs a lawyer for every process, but you need to know if you do, because God forbid you make a mistake and mess that up, right? So that's the idea of Proceso, is empower people through education first and foremost, and then through community events, and then connecting them to the right lawyers once they decide that they do need a lawyer. Right now, my firm is taking most of the cases, but my goal is to eventually expand out and to create a network of lawyers who understand the struggle, understand the need, who are good at what they actually do and who are going to meet our clients halfway so that good representation meets that need without defrauding our community and cutting out that middleman, because there's so many people willing and ready to take advantage of us. And we're we're so distressed and we're so vulnerable that we fall.
Yeah.
And that's where Proceso exists.
Yeah. Brian, thank you for that. And to Stephanie, we were talking before this conversation because I was asking about Proceso a little bit more. And I was like, so true. In Latin America, many people know that notarios are people with like lawyers and the abogados, and that's the highest thing you can get in Latin America. But here it's not. And I think that translation to the people like, oh, pero es que aquí, pues es que es un notario. And they come from a background over there, or like, oh, they most know what they're doing, you know? And I'm not saying that they don't know, but there's certain things that a notario shouldn't do.
I'll say it. They don't know. No.
Okay.
Vast majority do not know. And I'm talking about 80%. I have run across really good individuals who I think understand their limits, pero la mayoría de ellos engage in what we call the unlawful practice of law. Y eso es muy diferente. Es decir, se pasan de vamos a ayudarte a llenar documentos, vamos a traducirte los documentos, te voy a dar un consejo legal. Y ahí es el error que cometen, porque esta gente no está en corte. Esta gente no sabe lo que está haciendo y no sabe las consecuencias de una mala decisión. Y vos vienes con la idea de que le vas a dar $5,000, $10,000. ¿Verdad? Tal vez porque el abogado te dijo que 20 y esta persona te está diciendo 7 sin entender las consecuencias. Y eso, a esa gente, okay, para toda mi gente que está viendo aquí, que son abogados, I'm not coming after your job. I'm coming after notarios. That is who we're trying to eliminate to make sure that people are actually getting informed information.
Yeah, and it's true. Like I said, I'm glad that, you know, you clarify that, because I have met notarios, but they have told me, plus this, I cannot do that. That's why I was like, well, a lot of them know their limits, but I have known in her stories of like, mira, que él me está cobrando tanto y tanto y tanto. And I'm like, why are they doing that? Couldn't you just go over there? Why so cheap, you know? But also too, like, you know, what it means of a lawyer, like your mom, like both of your history, like at the time you couldn't afford a lawyer. Like, ¿quién tiene $20,000 para pagar, you know, specifically? But also to what Roger said, a veces we would do anything to adjust the status to the level that we will commit a mistake that will harm us to even get that, you know? And that is what, like, lack of education, or lack of education of like the resources that are out there, you know, lack of accessibility, and lack of having someone to guide you with good faith that they want the good on you rather than money from there.
I'm going to say something that's really, really unpopular because I don't care about popularity. You can love me or hate me, but I'm always going to tell you the truth. Part of the problem in our community is our priorities are screwed up because I have a 15-year-old, okay? And if we would have planned for a quinceañera, do you think I would have been able to come up with $15,000? Yes, I would have. How? El tío y el padrino de los zapatos, el padrino de esto. But when it comes to the things that matter, right, we become reactive rather than proactive. Y una de las cosas que, primero Dios, hemos aprendido de esta segunda administración de Trump, porque Trump no es el enemigo. Love him or hate him, como ellos van a venir más. Atrás de eso viene todo un movimiento. Y lo que nosotros tenemos que entender como inmigrantes en este país es de que primordialmente tenemos que tener dinero ahorrado. Y tenemos que tener un plan, a contingency plan. So we need to have a savings, a contingency plan. The things that wealthy people teach their kids is you need to have your lawyer and your CPA in place. Y eso es lo que nosotros no le enseñamos a nuestros niños, ¿verdad? Le enseñamos a trabajar duros, porque para trabajar somos burros. Yo no soy la excepción en eso. Tal vez no sudo como sudaba mi mamá en la factory de Nestlé, pero sudo. Pero una de las cosas que sí le trato de enseñar a nuestra comunidad cuando hablo con ellos es, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? Have a contingency plan in place. Who's going to take care of your kids if you are arrested? Who's got access to your bank account? Pero no, nosotros a veces llegamos a este país, Señor mío, por favor, si solo llego, yo te juro esto y lo otro, y cuando llegamos acá se nos olvida eso.
Yeah.
¿Por qué? Porque el afán de trabajar, las cosas, conseguimos el Toyota que por fin queríamos, la camioneta con el spinners, ¿me entiendes? La gran, no, y no lo digo por más, listen, trabaja duro, date los gustos que te quieras dar, pero tenés que entender que si este país no es tuyo, hasta que no tengas un papelito que diga es tuyo, y aún ahora te quieren quitar ese papelito, o sea, tú tienes que entender, ¿verdad? Porque el problema está que el mundo no siempre va a estar para dar. A mí me toca el corazón cuando se comunican conmigo, me dicen, es que yo no puedo pagar esto, no puedo pagar lo otro, y tengo 3 niños. I hear you, señora, bienvenido a los Estados Unidos. Este país no es país para viejitos, como dicen, ¿verdad? And we have to stop depending on the society or the community or whatnot. It's wonderful that we have community partners listos para ayudar. We can't depend on that. We have to take ownership of our own destiny. Yeah. And that comes with really facing realities that sometimes we're not ready and prepared to face. So, su cochinito, please put it to the side. Save your money. You'll have to. You can't spend everything. Otherwise, you're always chasing.
It's true. Honestly, it's true. I think finance is true.
I mean, it sounds harsh, but we're seeing a lot of cases right now where people are being detained and they're like, oh, can we submit the I-30 now? I have a citizen kid that has been born here since, I don't know, they're 30 years old. So you could have done this like 10 years ago. I've been married to a citizen for over 30 years. Can I submit an I-30 now? And it sucks, but it took this for them to, want to take that extra step. And now what happens is that they're spending more money because now these people are detained essentially, right? So now we have to pay for them to hopefully be released and then start a process because we didn't prioritize the right things. And I know the Latino community, we tend to have a lot of money. You just don't trust anyone, stick it under our mattress. But then the situation comes and, much like Proceso, the idea, what Roger was saying, DIY. Sadly, Latinos, we are the kings and queens of DIYs, but then we start doing Mickey Mouses, right? What we call Mickey Mouses. And, empezamos como la plomería. We start doing pipes, and then all of a sudden something bursts. And now it's like, well, who do we call? Who do we know that, But sometimes it's far too out. Like if we would have just called the plumber since the beginning, we wouldn't be in this predicament, right? With Proceso, a lot of the things, maybe we can fill out a form. Maybe we could guide you to do that. But then there's certain things that you need representation for, right? We're seeing a lot of habeases that are being filed by themselves using ChatGPT. You may have success, but if the judge says, oh, you know what, there's something missing here. Now you have to do 2 times the work. Now you have to hire an attorney to figure that out, to fight for you, and to fix your mistakes or a notary's mistakes, right?
And we see it. Like, in fact, I just got a young lady, a Venezuelan lady out of California City. Her husband hired me to do a bond in immigration court. And while I was preparing and arguing the bond, her husband took it upon himself, right, to file his own habeas. First of all, it went to the wrong court. Right. The Central District took it up in Los Angeles, and then eventually it starts to kind of oscillate and not do anything. And then it finally gets kicked out. He hires us, and we do come in. And again, no es que estoy hablando mal de nadie, because yo entiendo la desesperación, pero a veces en querer ahorrarte dinero o no en querer prepararte, cometes errores. Y gracias a Dios sacamos a esta señora, pero pasó tal vez 4 meses más encarcelada que lo que tuvo que haber pasado si lo hubiéramos hecho desde un principio correctamente, ¿verdad? Entonces, Mickey Mouse jobs, you have to be careful with that. Y la razón por Proceso, te voy a decir por qué la parte de educación es tan importante. Yo no cobro por información. Nosotros tenemos videos donde yo hablo de todo esto y hablo de todo lo otro. Lo que yo cobro es por el trabajo. Information is free. The working is not, ¿verdad? Porque eso es ya diferente. Pero yo también creo que si nosotros le damos la información donde una persona se puede preparar, cuando ya entra el abogado y le dice, listen, it's going to cost $7,000 for the habeas, ya la persona entiende. Because now you see how the sausage is made. The problem is too many lawyers, and this is where the Proceso part for lawyers also comes in, is too many lawyers don't understand that communicating with the prospective client is so important. Educating them on the process is so important, because only then, right, can you understand the reason that you're about to pay for what you're about to pay for. It's like taking a car to the mechanic, and the mechanic says it's going to cost you $5,000 without telling you why, right? And then the problem is, if you're an honest lawyer, y me preguntas a mí, wow, pero ¿será que va a salir mi ser querido o será que se va a ganar? La respuesta que un abogado éticamente y honesto te va a decir es, no sé, depende. Y el problema de esa respuesta es de que tú vas a pagarle a alguien $12,000 para que te dé I don't know, maybe.
Quién sabe, yeah.
Without knowing what it takes, it's really difficult to get clients there, or it's really difficult to get the community there. So the goal proceso is multi-front. El primero is educate the community, the consumer. And then they determine, I've got enough, I could do this on my own. Awesome. If you're not, we're there to help you on a limited scope representation basis. If you need more, we're going to have a whole host of referrals ready for you. If you're in Maryland, if you're in Georgia, if you're in Texas, if you're in Louisiana, eventually proceso will grow out. And we will be everywhere to be able to help people throughout. And eventually, it's going to be more than just immigration. It's going to be custody issues because our community suffers from that as well. What if you're going through a divorce? You don't know where to turn to. And you need to, submit documentation, but you're somewhere in Colorado. Well, guess what? We'll be able to have the referral base for you there. And that's the idea behind Proceso, is to really help people learn the legal aspect of the needs that we have in our community. Okay.
I think that is very needed. And like you said, like DUI, I think I also have done that. Like, how to do this, file this thing, you know what I mean? I think exactly TikTok or something like that. But I think it's also needed for inform people about what is the process, what does it take, do you need a lawyer, do you need anything, all this stuff. I say that because being surrounded, like I said, surrounded with my own family of like different type of status, and they were like, well, you need a lawyer for this, or you're gonna pay this por un perdón, or like, or what is an adjustment of status, or all this stuff. Like, and I tend to like what I was telling you, I intern in a lot of like law firms, and I had to tell people, like, I didn't know you could do this, you know what I mean? Like, that's something that you learn until like you, like someone that a lawyer or something will tell you, like, these are options. And I think having Proceso to be accessible to the community is very important. So my question right now is like, as of right now, you guys are building a office here for Proceso. And then you said that you eventually want to expand. Is this something that is accessible, will be accessible like online for people even that they cannot?
Yes.
And how?
Remember I mentioned LegalZoom?
Yes.
So the idea for Proceso is to be multifold.
Okay.
Right. We have, obviously, there's a generation gap between me and my sister. Mm-hmm. I'm Gen X, so I still remember the world where there was no computers everywhere. Mm-hmm. And this viejito does. Right. I still remember a world where you just didn't have that.
Flash disk.
Right. Now, fast forward, right? Whether we like it or not, our viejitos have to learn how to use the internet, and they do, trust me. I can see my mom on TikTok.
They can do Facebook.
Maybe my point being is, and then we just live in a world, right, with the advent of artificial intelligence and technology where it's at, you don't need to be in one place to help service a person out, and we're proof of that. Pero también hay una necesidad de tener face-to-face contact with our community. And it's because we hope Proceso is more than just, we're trying to marry the idea of what LegalZoom does online for the world that needs that service and what H&R Block is for the people that need that service. Because where can you find a LegalZoom?
No, in person. I was like, online.
That's it. But H&R Block has a different model. So we're really trying to emulate more what H&R Block does, where our first office is here in Bakersfield. We're hoping to be in Fresno by the end of next year, and in Van Nuys, and eventually Santa Ana and Long Beach, and then Houston, and then Chicago, right? So we're trying to really expand this out so that we have a brick and mortar office and space with educated paralegals and hopefully an attorney also available. If the attorney can't physically be there available, be there through telephone calls or whatnot. But la idea es que tú tienes un lugar, no solamente donde te vas a poder hablar con alguien, porque a veces este tipo de comunicación se requiere eso. Pero no nomás eso, en los centros de Proceso van a ser un centro comunitario también, de seminarios, de educación, de hablar de taxes, no solamente hablar de esto. Not that we want to prepare taxes, but we want to teach you, a landscaper, you, the mechanic, you in our community, the nanny, right? If you're getting a 1099, ¿cómo hacer eso para asegurarte de que tú estás maximizando tus bienes y tu bienestar y tu patrimonio? Esa es la idea grande del proceso. Empezamos ahorita con lo que más se necesita, obvio, inmigración, ¿verdad? Pero la idea del proceso es poder hacernos parte de la comunidad donde estamos representando no solamente un lugar donde llenamos papeles y te damos consejo legal, pero también un centro comunitario donde tal vez la gente, cuando no tiene donde más que ir, se puede informar.
I think it's very important to have that hybrid, porque yo creo que como, like you said, like you two have a gap, but also like I see myself as myself and my mom. I'm someone who will like Google it. I will figure it out. The less I can drive, the less I can go, the better for me that I can just schedule it. My mom will be like, I need to see a person. I need to go in person. I need to be explained in person. I need to make sure I trust them.
Si le vas a dar a alguien $7,000, yeah, I know.
And I think that is good for, like, for example, proceso is that multi-generation, because again, like, immigration doesn't just affect old people, it affects young people, like new people who are coming into this country, or like, you know, people who have been here before but like they don't know where to start, or like you said, like with everything that's happening, we're like, well, a lot of people, like you said, for a very long time you grew up like another American kid, and then it gets to a point where like, actually you don't have to, you know, you don't have papers, you're not, you know, and then it's like, oh, how do I navigate that? I think even for me, like that I moved here when I was like 11 years old, I always knew, you know, but I was like, how can I fix my status? I have gone to so many, how can I fix my status? I already know that, you know what I mean? The process of that, but because it took me a very long time to be asking everybody. But it's like, to my parents or other people, they're like, well, I don't know, we just don't know, we just have to wait, which, like, you know, because there's not that information out there, which I think is great having, because you said you have videos. Is that it will be in the same platform where people can find the videos and all stuff?
Vamos a hacer más y vamos a invitar a otros abogados también, porque esto cansa. Yo trabajo casi 12 a 14 horas al día, and it's tiring. Y a la misma vez, pues I'm managing my law firm, right? Like I have to go to court and I have to do real lawyer stuff. And you know, and it's hard because mi tiempo es bien súper limitado, pero el crecimiento se está viendo, la fundación se está viendo. And even to those lawyers who at first didn't understand, because you started with that question with my sister, is, did you understand what I was trying to do? Even to those lawyers that don't understand, they will understand. And I think they're beginning to see it. You know how I know? Because they're reaching out to me, abogado. They're reaching out to me as the federal lawyer who does habeas corpus. Hey, how do I do this? Right? Or what are you doing that is, you know, gaining this kind of success for your clients? And eventually they will buy into what we're trying to achieve. I think there's a real, and I already had lawyers ask me this, like kind of in a weird way, but like there's a fear that what Proceso is trying to do is eliminate lawyers, and that is not at all. What we're trying to do is connect lawyers who are already doing awesome work with the people who actually need the service. And we want to demystify that process so that people are not entering into this weird, like, you know, a lo ciego, encontrarse el primer abogado que encuentren y ese abogado hace más daño, because that's also something we run into all the time. So rather than going through that, we want Proceso. Come here. We'll teach you. We'll teach you for free. There's video on that. You want to file your own citizenship application? Hay un video para eso. You want to do your own family petition? Hay un video para eso. You want to do an I-601A, perdón? Hay un video para eso. And then you determine how much lawyer you need, right? I compare it to YouTube. ¿Tú tienes un carro?
Yeah.
Okay. ¿Cuándo fue la última vez que le cambiaste los frenos a tu carro?
Like a year, 2 years ago?
¿Lo hiciste tú?
No. Absolutely not.
Déjate pregunto. ¿Por qué?
Because I can't do that.
But it's on YouTube and it's on TikTok. That's my point. That's my point. And that's what Proceso is, right? Just because there is information available online doesn't mean that it should be you get under your car and change the brakes, and God forbid those brakes come off the 14 freeway as you're driving home. That's the point. And proceso is precisely that, because hay gente que no entiende el procedimiento, y tal vez al entender el procedimiento y lo que se requiere va a entender por qué necesitan abogado.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to ask also too, because part of Professor, I know this right now started with immigration and like the full idea scope of like becoming a community center and having all their conversation, but also part of this, and also the law firm that you guys have, you guys also touch on criminal law. Why is that also? I mean, it's important to talk about immigration and criminal law together because it does affect both our community. Does Proceso also touch on criminal law?
So it's important to separate Proceso from my law office.
Okay.
Proceso is not a law firm. Okay. I'm a lawyer. I have my own law firm, Ponce Law Corporation. Okay. Proceso is the sister company. And it's a sister company that does nothing but educational platform. Eventually we'll get into legal document preparation, right? And so in Proceso will be a place that will be a referral place. Right now, everything through Proceso is being referred to my office because we don't have other lawyers yet. But the goal is not for that to happen. So I always tell folks, I am a criminal defense attorney. I am a trial lawyer. Last year, I did 12 trials alone. I do murder. I do death penalty. I do real serious litigation in criminal court. I'm a federal litigator as well. So I go to federal court to handle federal criminal cases. I am pretending to be an immigration lawyer because I no longer like immigration. But the reason that I am uniquely able to do what I do is because what happens in criminal court doesn't stay in criminal court. Oftentimes, the plea that people take affects their immigration status. And if you don't have the right criminal defense attorney guide you through that, you're going to make a mistake. I'm going to give you an example. I had a client who took a receiving stolen property plea, okay, in criminal court, felony. They only got 270 days in jail. Not a problem. Son residentes legales, so not a problem. Except he violates probation. When he violates probation, probation gives him an additional, the rest portion of it. So it makes it close to 16 months now in jail. That's a problem. That probation violation now led him to removal proceedings. When ICE picks him up, now not only does his stupid case for receiving stolen property for a stupid lawnmower that was stolen, right, that he bought online, right, didn't do the due diligence, se le hizo fácil comprar este lawnmower, right, now became this headache. Because when now immigration is not only holding you in custody, but they're getting ready to take your green card away because of what happened in criminal court. And that's why having someone like me who's uniquely positioned, who understands immigration, understands criminal, and now we do family law out of this cases, out of this court here, because what happens is in family court, it's also really important, right? All of that, nothing exists in a vacuum. And that's why having someone like me, I always say, like, I understand now why God took me I was a commissioner here in Bakersfield. So they were trying to make me a judge and I was getting ready to move in that direction. But something deep down inside stopped me. And it was because my dream to give back to my community is far more than that of being a judge. Judges are very limited. And what we're trying to build here is not something that you can do with a robe. It's something that you have to do as a private practitioner, and bringing the skills that we learn in criminal court as a litigator really benefits our community. Because I'm not just a paper filer. It's not just that I sit back and I read these books and I study. No, I'm actually in court. I know what I'm talking about.
No. Oh boy.
I mean, what I do have to add to that is that we have seen with a lot of habeas corpus, and I keep talking about those because that has been a very trending topic. And, my brother's very old school, he said, but popularity has definitely helped. I mean, he's gone very viral on TikTok, and we have had all kinds of clients just reach out through TikTok, right? Like, oh, este abogado si se ve que sabe lo que está haciendo, entonces sí confío en él. And we have been able to contact, other attorneys in other states, and we have been able to help.
Arizona, I've got now relationships with attorneys in Louisiana and Texas and New Mexico. And right now it's a favor for a favor kind of deal, right? So it's like, people call me, we start helping them, and I work with other lawyers on what's called pro hac vici or co-counsel basis. But eventually, I'm hoping these individuals become sort of roots to what Proceso can grow, right? And eventually have these people also do what I'm doing on these videos. Right now, our videos are very limited and selected because we haven't built the groundwork. I still don't have the paralegal staff. We're building that. But eventually, we will have all those DIYs for $19.99. You can learn how to do your own whatever. And then you determine, right? The same way that LegalZoom does. LegalZoom, you can file your own paperwork. They just charge you for the administrative fee. But if you want to talk to somebody, it's going to be an additional this and that. If you need a lawyer for that, it's going to be an additional this or that. And so that's the idea, is that we want to create, I know I kind of say it jokingly, but it's like Five Guys. Not everyone wants bacon in their burger. I love bacon, so I'm going to pay that extra, right? And then you can be in the position to also determine how much lawyer you need.
Yeah. I wanted to also ask as of right now, so is it open now, or like when are you trying to launch?
No, Proceso's already open online. This is going to be our first physical office. And so we anticipate it should be open in about 30 days. And then we're going to be hiring, of course, paralegal staff to really come in full force to be able to, and this will be kind of our guinea pig, right? This will be our first test of what we can do with this. And then eventually down the line, my dream is really to make Proceso just kind of copy and paste, for the lawyers that want to get involved. We'll offer franchise opportunities, right? And so this is how I see Proceso scaling to a level of H&R Block and to a level of McDonald's.
So before we finish this, because I know we have like a lot of questions, but I wanted to ask for both of you, even for you that's a first generation, but Latina and you're immigrant, with Proceso, what do you think it's like? I mean, we had talked about like what the Proceso is and everything that goes to create it and what you two do in law, but what is the impact that you hope it creates in your community, not only like in the legal side, but also for those who can benefit from Proceso?
I mean, going back to one of the first questions you asked, when I was shook when he presented this idea to me, right? It very much felt like he was presenting a Build-A-Bear of immigration to me. Like, you come in and you custom do this, right? And you do, and I'm not gonna lie, I've always believed in him. I think I believe in him more than he believes in himself sometimes. But if there's anyone that could have launched this idea, it's him, because this is a guy that will be sitting at a car wash. And the moment that the guy next to him finds out he's an immigration attorney, ay, mire, tengo que contarle algo, a ver qué opina. And you will catch Roger sitting there for an hour telling him everything about his case. And finally, after an hour, pero contacta mi oficina. And it's like, bro, you already told him everything to do, right? So I very much believe.
This business manager. This is why I'm just a lawyer trying to build a business. I need business managers.
And they just got a free consult, really, at the car wash now, right? But that is why I believe in his idea, and I do believe it. And I think he was kind of staring at me like, what do you think? And I'm like, no, I'm here for it. I think Latinos, we like to DIY, but we also get intimidated. And seeing some of these forms, I'm like, this legal terminology can be intimidating you if English is your first language. You don't know what in the world they're asking, right? But Proceso, I think, to touch on this last question, it really empowers you. Either you're going to guide me to fill this out, or you're going to guide me to know that I am not capable of filling this out. These are my car brakes, and I'm not about to risk my life right now on the 14 freeway with, but it's also very empowering just to see, if I don't understand and I can't do this myself, I understand why now, right? I mean, for example, putting a 601 packet, which is one of the last things I just did with him, you don't understand how much goes into the perdón, right? We're seeing a list of a request for therapist notes about how this person could be affected if, their loved one or their spouse was actually deported. Things like that you don't realize go into this medical notes, all this paperwork. I mean, we were talking about a pile that was how many papers? Maybe like 500 with table of contacts and index and todo eso. And es muy fácil decir, wow, ¿por qué tanto para el perdón? Pero cuando ya le toca a uno poner todos los papeles y archivar y ordenarlo, uno entiende. So I think Proceso teaches you why we have to pay this much. What is the process? It's not just 1 hour of work. It's, you know, sometimes accumulative. You pile up all these papers, you organize it, and then you present it. And for habeas corpus, we're seeing people submit them, but then for some reason the judge says no, and now you have to go back and figure out why. And if you have an attorney, your attorney might resubmit, but if you did it with the notary, now you have to pay another session. So, you know, in Spanish we say this, lo barato a veces sale caro, right? And very much with Proceso, we are seeing that, right? And that is our mission, to empower people, but also educate them why this is important, why you need to invest in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, empowerment. That's empowerment, and is the biggest you know, motivator for me. We are an economic force to be reckoned with in this country, and the problem is everyone takes advantage of us, but no one gives back to us. You know, everyone is so willing to take our dollars, speak to us in Spanish, and put Bad Bunny up there to sell you a product. And no, this is not against Bad Bunny. Love you, bro. It's more about like empowering our community so that we can take control of our own story, our own destination, and our own destiny, right? And so, yes, right now it's all immigration. And how I knew this would work, even before Proceso, like I told you, it's been on for 5-6 years. I've never made $1 on it until we started putting together this thing with the habeas situation and understanding. And right now, it isn't even Proceso that's really making the dollar, because I'm the attorney. I'm the one that still has to do the work right now, right? But we're seeing through TikTok and the information we're giving, even when I tell people how to do it themselves, do you know what I get? No, well, yo lo quiero contratar a usted.
Yeah.
Because the same reason that you wouldn't change your own brakes, why? It's on YouTube. You could just follow the steps. You'd rather not.
Yeah, I'd rather not risk it.
That's it, right? And that's the bottom line. But if I would have told you, I'm going to charge you $700 for a brake change, you're going to be like, if he didn't understand what went into it or the reasons why, then it's going to be very difficult for you to understand why you need to invest, and this is a priority for you, right? So I'm hoping that Proceso becomes an empowerment center, but also a place where we can teach future generations that, listen, we may be a quote unquote minority in some sense, but we're a force to be reckoned with. And I want Proceso to be the forefront leading that march towards that understanding that we're not victims. We're not victims, we're victors. And this is a place, if God brought you here, or whatever you believe in, right? Whatever your faith is in, if you're here in this country now, it's for a reason. And it is not to just simply be a sucker. And so that's where Proceso, I'm hoping, really it starts to establish people. I'm big on entrepreneurship, right? And much love to my landscapers, much love to my, taqueros and all these people that work so hard to make $1. There's no reason why they can't understand the way that dollar can work in their lives. So Proceso starting right now small. La semilla tal vez es inmigración, porque esto es lo que más se está viendo y sintiendo, pero eventualmente vamos a hacer todo un centro comunitario para todas cosas legales y de negocios que tienen que afectar a nuestra comunidad.
No, thank you so much for both of you to talk about Proceso and the work that you're doing in the community. I think it's so important. As a, I'm looking at myself, I'm like, I'm going to have it saved when it's time. Yes. But before we go, I want, if you can tell the community how they can find you, not only social media, but also how they can find the educational videos and the platform as of right now.
Yeah, so we're currently on TikTok. We have a growing following there. Instagram. We also have our office here in Bakersfield by appointment currently. Once the Proceso office is open, that will obviously change. So like next 30 days. But you can also give us a call. Our Proceso TikTok does have our phone number and they have our email address. So we have an abundance of clients emailing us, their case scenario, and we're booking consults. But yeah, you can reach us through TikTok.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you also have your law firm, so where they can find it in case.
Same way. I mean, it's all interconnected.
Okay.
Pero Proceso is really is where I'm hoping really grows more than anything. The law firm, is la arma que hace el trabajo, but I'm hoping that eventually Proceso can focus more on being the quarterback, right? Passing the ball to the different lawyers that can help rather than taking it all themselves.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the space. Thank you.